Good evening, ladies and gentlemen, and welcome to a little bit of an earlier start here in our NRRL Sunday division. This is Season 2, Round 6, and we are live in the Styrian Mountains for the Austrian Grand Prix. My name is Jack, I'm your commentator, and alongside me in the commentary booth tonight is my brother Lewis. Good evening, Lewis. How are you doing?
I'm good. Always a good track for racing action. But before racing, we have 18 minutes of qualifying, and it's a very, very difficult one to call around here.
Most certainly that, a very short lap. All the corners really connect up with each other, and it's difficult to try and gain a big amount of lap time. I must say, if there is going to be a close qualifying in this season, it is going to be this one. So we will strap ourselves in now for our 18 minutes of qualifying, where hopefully these drivers will put on an absolute clinic for us. First driver out on track, and I believe a debutant in NRRL, is Jack 10777777, who I will refer to as Jack. In the Haas, he's just coming through the middle sector. A couple of debutants tonight, including Torpedo Steve for Alpine and KT Spidey for Mercedes, so looking to impress on their debuts. A lot of drivers coming out very, very early, and with 17 drivers in this session, could traffic play a little bit of a game in drivers setting their best lap times?
It absolutely could, with how quick this track is and how short this track is. It's very, very easy to get held up, not even on purpose, intentionally, sorry. So it is a very, very difficult session, especially those last few minutes when everyone's looking to get laps in. You really need it to be a perfect run for you, or you will get punished.
And another thing that can play really pivotal around this circuit is those dreaded track limits. Obviously, strict track limits here in NRRL. And it's very easy at Austria to just run a little wheel over the curbs, and that is your lap time gone. I'm on board with Jack, who is just getting a little bit held up in some dirty air with the Ferrari ahead of him. That will be the Ferrari of Dan Lovett, as Matt Connor is in the pit lane, so definitely not ideal for Jack to be getting all of this dirty air through the middle sector. It's obviously purple, and look, you can see Dan Lovett even weaving in front of him, and that's very close to contact. Jack has to go off the track, and league owner Dan Lovett definitely should be visiting the stewards after the Grand Prix for something like that. That is not what you want to see.
Absolutely not. Not a good start to the session for him. Luckily, not at the end, so it shouldn't punish him too much. He's managed to keep it in the right direction. But that is certainly a moment which he will be looking at and making sure that doesn't happen again.
Most certainly. Daryl currently fastest with a 105.6. That's on the medium compound tyres, but plenty of drivers out on track looking to improve, including I Have No Grip. We know how quick I Have No Grip can be. He comes around the final corner now and does go to provisional pole. It's 5/10 clear of Daryl. Next man I'm looking at is going to be Harry, who's just coming through the final corner now. Car looking a little bit unsettled as he turns it in, but drives it for the line and goes 2 milliseconds faster, and then is immediately replaced by the Alpine of Torpedo Steve, and then is immediately replaced by Dan Lovett, going half a second quicker. So Dan Lovett, we know he'll be in the stewards' room after the race, but during qualifying, absolutely flying out there is the Ferrari.
Putting himself in the position he needs to be just in case trouble falls his way. And that is a very, very big gap to start off the session.
Most certainly.
And it's
Mikey brings that gap down, as does MCL. MCL and Mikey, two of NRRL's quickest drivers. And you can see how close they are. Hash goes into P6 with a 105.1. But that is a massive gap out in front for Dan Lovett. Jamaican Jam, a very quick driver. He's now coming to the line. Goes P4 with a 104.9. Ryan Brooks has invalidated his lap. You'd expect him most certainly to be up there as well. Paul Codd is on a lap. I believe Traps is coming into the pit lane, but you can see those invalidations already playing dividends.
very much so. As we said, it's very, very easy to invalidate here. even the slightest lift off and not brake can be the difference. You've got to be very, very careful, but also have a balance of trying to push. So qualifying, you could say, is one of the more difficult qualifying sessions around here, but it is very, very easy to make a mistake and ruin your lap. And for half of this circuit, if you make a mistake, you're in the gravel.
Most certainly that. This is your very old school Formula 1 track. If you go off, it's gravel or it's grass. There's not much runoff around this circuit. There is into the sort of final couple of corners, but most certainly around the length of this track, it is gravel and grass that will be looking to catch you out. And that is also something you really want to shy away from in the race. Going wheel to wheel with another driver, you can get caught out, maybe run a little bit wide, as I'm on board with Ryan Brooks, who is going to have to dive off of the racing line to avoid the Mercedes of KT Spidey that actually ran out of fuel, but was conveniently sat on the racing line anyway. Ryan Brooks comes to the line now and goes fastest with a 1:04.3 on a few lap worn soft tyres as well. And KT Spidey has decided to stay out even with no fuel in the car. That is, I don't believe, a choice that is really going to garner you any lap time. And now off the track, just to... I'm very confused as to what I'm watching here. This is quite the interesting strategy, I must say. And he's now taking to the MotoGP chicane line, it would seem.
This does not make much sense.
Very confusing stuff.
This is silly, Katie. Come on.
Most certainly that. Matt Connor dives into the pits. Darrell, I believe, is on another lap on the medium tyres. He's been going on those tyres since the very start of this session. Around 2 3/4 tenths up on his previous lap. That would most certainly gain him some positions. Darrell, we know, can be very quick on his day. Has suffered a little bit of bad luck and driver error. But Darrell, we know when he locks in, and when he finds the pace, that pace is raw. Goes up to P7 on the medium compound tyres. Now, I don't know the difference between the mediums and the softs. I don't know how much quicker the softs are. But once that V-carb straps on a set of the red ring boots, that could be a danger to the rest of the field.
It absolutely could be. He has the pace. We've seen it before. Can he now find the ability to use it?
Exactly that. DGH is on a lap now. He's a 10th up. And that again would gain him positions. I mean, you can see how close the grid is. All within really... Well, I mean, you're looking from P1 down to P12 if you want to see a second difference. Very, very close in NRRL. DGH just coming through the middle sector now. Hash has gone onto a lap but has invalidated at turn 1. DGH just coming to the sector 2 split. Nearly 4 tenths up is DGH. So this looking to be a very good lap. We know track evolution can pay dividends, as I believe KT is now coming into the pits, thank God, with that low-fueled Mercedes. DGH comes across the line, goes into P3 with a 1:04.6, splits Dan Lovett and MCL, and that is a lovely little lap from DGH to put himself up there. Torpedo Steve is on a lap and is about a 10th up, I believe. He's just approaching the middle sector split as well. We'll keep on board with the Alpine as he comes through the middle sector. 4 tenths up is Torpedo Steve, and it says that that middle sector's purple. It would not surprise me if it is. And the Alpine now with just 2 corners to negotiate to get towards the line. This surely is going to be an improvement, but by how much? DRS wide open, goes into P2. And on debut, Torpedo Steve looking absolutely rapid, only a few hundredths off of provisional pole position. Incredible lap.
As you say, for a debut, that is very, very strong. Right up at the top. Nice to see some new faces that perhaps aren't at the top as usual. up there now. Obviously, still 8 minutes to go, but a very, very mixed up grid, it seems.
Most certainly that, and I mean the race, we know that this track, very good for overtaking. Mikey is just coming to the line now and goes to provisional pole. Beautiful lap from F1 Mikey boy. He's about a tenth, well not even a tenth clear, he's about, what is that, 40 milliseconds clear of Ryan Brooks. And it's really starting to get close at the front. We saw Dan Lovett's lap and said, wow, that's pretty far ahead. We then saw Ryan Brooks go ahead of him and thought, wow, that's pretty far ahead. But now, this is really getting close. Darrell is still out on the mediums. You would expect him in a lap or two. Matt Connor improves up to 9th. Traps is on a lap on the medium compound tyres. Paul Codd's on a lap on the soft compound tyres, but has taken a little trip into the gravel in the middle sector, I believe. And again, just wandering into the gravel there. He is invalidated anyway. Jack is on a lap and is 85 milliseconds up on his first sector time. KT Spidey is on a lap, on an outlap, sorry, as is Josh, who has joined us. Ryan Brooks just going on to an outlap. And as we reach the business end of this 18-minute qualifying, we are really starting to get tight.
Very much so. You see those gaps getting ever smaller. They tend to start out at around your 4-5 tenths. Now less than half a tenth. So any slight improvement you can make could be the difference between P6 and P3.
Exactly that, and it can be so frustrating in the cockpit when you see you've gained just that little bit that you think you need, and then someone overtakes you by a couple of milliseconds and you think just maybe a millisecond later on the brakes or a few milliseconds quicker turning, and that time could have been yours. But unfortunately, that is the way that the cookie crumbles sometimes in Formula One. Ryan Brooks is just coming through the final couple of corners to go on to his first flying lap, or well, his second flying lap, his first flying lap on this set of tyres. And we will stick with Ryan Brooks, who looks to try and chase down Mikey boy and take back that provisional pole position. Ryan Brooks, we know, absolutely rapid, has been a little bit MIA in recent races. He hasn't raced too much, and when he has, he's had strings of bad luck and inconsistencies. But tonight, he will look to change that. A little bit of an oversteer moment out of turn 3, but nothing that will harm him too bad, as he now opens up the DRS once more, and into turn 4 we go, riding the curb as he brakes downhill. Gets on the power nice and early, little bit of wheel spin, nothing that should cost him too much. Now gets it turned in for this very technical middle sector. Run it out wide, not too wide like he's just done there, but he is 2.5 tenths up. So Ryan Brooks finding time late in qualifying. 2 corners to negotiate. First one, just a little dab on the brakes, a couple of downshifts. Little bit slower for this next one. Get it turned in. Camber helps you turn in as well. Drive to the line. And Ryan Brooks nearly into the 1 minute 3s with that lap. It's a 1 minute 4.059 for Ryan Brooks. And provisional pole is his once again.
Very, very strong lap. Still plenty of time for those just behind to claw back that time. You would expect Ryan has time for one more lap himself, but I think you'd start to slowly get confident.
MCL invalidated his lap, but it would have put him in 3rd place. So MCL definitely has the pace. Harry has moved up into 8th with his most recent lap. Darrell is definitely one to watch. Now on the soft compound tyres, he's just coming towards the final couple of corners. We know how quick he was on the mediums. Does that translate to the soft compound tyres? Round the final corner, he comes now. Is it good enough? It's P4 for Darrell. That's a great lap from him. And the only man to not have set a lap thus far is KT Spidey, who is again back out on the track with no fuel. And has actually just crashed into a McLaren. That was Mr. Traps, who is on a lap. And I must say, that looked mighty intentional. And I am going to stick here because he's just now crashed into Jack as well and got himself another 5-place grid penalty. And it looks like we may have ourselves a bad apple in the NRRL orchard.
I have no clue what to say to any of this, but this is embarrassing.
Most certainly that. Taking part in a 100% league race, purposely trying to take people out. You know, we see it all the time in league racing. We saw it early on in this session with Dan Lovett. Never on purpose, but holding up, I believe it was Jack, on his outlap. That'll be looked at by the stewards. They'll consult about that, and I'm sure, from the way I was looking at, that Dan Lovett will receive some sort of repercussion. But that most certainly was intentional, and I can near enough promise you that we will not be seeing Katie Spidey any time after today. Daryl is on another lap and is about 2/10 up. So Daryl, who will be the first of the top 4 to set their final flying lap, is absolutely flying as he makes his way through turn 4 now. A little bit of an oversteer moment, but nothing that's majorly going to harm him as he now comes through the middle sector. Car turning in lovely. Is it going to provide enough grip for him though? He's 99 milliseconds up, almost a 10th up. That would gain him a position. It wouldn't be good enough for pole position unless he has the final sector of dreams. He comes round the final corner now. That looked neater than his last one. He drives to the line. Daryl goes to P2, but Mikey will have the chance to respond to that. He's going for a double outlap, is Mikey. Torpedo Steve is on his outlap. It's just coming around the final corner. He's going for his lap now, so he will be the next of the top 4 to set a lap. Harry is just going onto his lap now, currently sat in P9. MCL will definitely be looking to improve. Dan Lovett is also on a lap. He's just going through turn 1. And now at the business end of qualifying, the times should start to tumble. The entire top 4 is on a lap. We're currently watching Harry, who's currently in P9, definitely looking to improve from there. And we will switch back to Torpedo Steve as soon as Harry ends his lap. A little bit of understeer through the middle sector for Harry. Drives it a little bit onto the gravel. He's a 10th down and has ran it very, very wide. And that is going to be Harry's qualifying over. So now back to Torpedo Steve. He's 3.5 tenths up. And this would take him towards provisional pole. The Alpine on debut looking absolutely unstoppable. But is the grip there in the final few corners? He tips it in now. It looks tight and neat. Is it quick? He goes to provisional pole by 0.3 of a second. But now here comes Ryan Brooks to try and answer the challenge. Ryan doesn't have a reply. He cannot improve. So now over to Daryl and to Mikey Boy. But we could be looking at a debut pole position. Jamaican Jam retires from the session. MCL props himself up into P3. He can't take it away. Mikey Boy is just coming through the middle sector. Now there's carnage in the middle sector and Mikey Boy backs out of it. So now it's all down to Daryl, who's just coming through the middle sector now. Makes his way past the Haas corner ahead of him. 2 corners to go for Daryl. Is there time in it? That is the question. Through the penultimate corner he comes and he's pitting. So on debut, wow. Torpedo Steve for Alpine is on pole position by 0.3 of a second. Incredible.
What a way to debut. To announce yourself to the world. Then with pole position. Unbelievable. I'm lost for words.
Absolutely beautiful lap from the debutant. And I believe for the first time ever, we've got a debutant on pole position. And I mean, it's easier said than done. But if he can hold on to that and take a debut race win, that would be some feat of achievement. But with drivers behind him like Ryan Brooks, MCL, Daryl and Mikey Boy, who are all very experienced drivers and all of them race winners in NRRL, That is going to be no easy feat. But it's Torpedo Steve on debut who takes pole, and it's Ryan Brooks who joins him on the front row. On the second row, it's MCL leading Daryl, and then to the third row, it's Mikey Boy leading Jamaican Jam. Josh is in 7th with Matt Connor in 8th. Dan Lovett is just behind his teammate in 9th, and DGH rounds off the top 10. Well, Lewis, we said that was going to be a good qualifying session. That was most certainly one that we won't forget for a while.
Absolutely. And still, like I say, I'm just lost for words at the pole sitter. We knew he had pace coming into the Sunday tier, but to get pole like that, I mean, like I said, what a way to debut.
Now, we know we're at the business end of this season. If you look on your screens, ladies and gentlemen, you can see this is round 6 of round 8 here in Austria tonight. Next week, we go to the Circuit of the Americas in Austin, Texas for the Texan Grand Prix, followed by a double header in the United States of America, where the final round of the season takes us to Las Vegas. As you can see in the Tier 1 Drivers' Championship, it is Jamaican Jam that has a very, very healthy lead over F1 Mikey Boy. So I have no grip in 3rd, with Bracey in 4th and Quincy in 5th. And as we look to this race definitely going to have big implications for the championship. And, well, really for both championships. This is most certainly going to be a 70-odd laps to keep our eyes on.
Very much so. He's done well to get pole. Now the big question, can he keep it?
Exactly that, but you've got to think the likes of Ryan Brooks, of F1 Mikey Boy, who are in the fight for the championship, will be wanting to improve positions. We know that Torpedo Steve, he won't be in the championship fight, but most certainly next season you would expect that he will be up there with pace like that. But around this Austrian Grand Prix today, it could be a pivotal day for the championship picture. And if you are someone like F1 Mikey Boy, like an MCL or Ryan Brooks, this is going to be a big, big race for you. And you're not going to want to let a debutant ruin that.
Absolutely not. Those who have already been here know what they need to do. But like I said with the pole sitter, can they do it? You don't really know. And that's why you have to watch.
Completely agreed. Now, I'm just looking in the chat, and there seems to be quite the discussion about traffic, with cars retiring in the middle of the track. We obviously saw KT Spidey getting involved in a few incidents during qualifying. But we are going in a minute's time, and we are now looking towards the grid for those fabled 5 red lights ahead of what should be, and what is promised to be, an absolutely brilliant Austrian Grand Prix. And I will quickly pass it to you, Lewis. If you were in any of those cockpits out there today, what's the strategy looking like?
I think you've just got to get through the first lap unscathed and then kind of settle into a rhythm there. It's a long race, but if you know what you're doing, those laps will go down quick.
5 red lights ahead of the drivers, ahead of the Austrian Grand Prix, and it is lights out, and away we go. Torpedo Steve gets away well from pole position, but Ryan Brooks is with him. In behind, there's a big crash there, and we've got a Mercedes already into the wall as the mid-pack now makes their way through turn 1, and that is a big, big moment there for the Mercedes of, I believe, Jamaican Jam, who is falling massive places as we now head up the hill towards turn 2, and there's even more contact. There's an Aston Martin off the road. Jamaican Jam's flown into the side of a V-carb, and there is debris absolutely everywhere on this opening lap. I have no grip with massive damage at the back, but out in front, Torpedo Steve the debutant with the dream start Ryan Brooks right behind though. Josh already up to third. MCL down to fourth with Mikey in fifth. It's Daryl in sixth with Matt Connor in seventh. But in the midfield and behind, there is a lot of battling going on. As there, we've got Paul Codd flying off the track into the gravel and coming back on just around the outside of his teammate. But nothing doing for him there. Most certainly not going to find grip on the stones out there. KT Spidey currently up in P16, but with a bit of a damaged front wing as the first lap ends and DRS is enabled, and Ryan Brooks now looks to try and set after the debutant pole sitter.
But here comes Josh. He's looking at it as well. Although Ryan gets a better exit out of 2 up towards turn 3. Too far back for any of the top to think about. But as we said, you just need to find yourself getting through that opening lap and settle into a rhythm there. And the top 2 have done just that.
Exactly that. As we look to the tyre allocation, very, very split strategies. Harry already looking to make moves after a bit of a poor start, which I believe is the first time I've ever said that. And there's 2 cars barreling off the road. And that is, I believe, Harry and Dan Lovett wheel locking. And these two that have started to become real big rivals in NRRL, Dan Lovett and Harry, always seem to be in the wars with each other. Once more, a chapter is added to their fabled tale, and again, there is contact between Harry and Matt Connor that results in a big loss for Dan Lovett. He never seems to get the luck of the draw, as there we can see more wheel banging between the Sauber and the Red Bull of Paul Codd and Matt Tudor. Dan Lovett says, thank you very much, I'll be taking those positions away. And I mean, as much as I'm not a steward, I'm most certainly not the man that can call it. Both of those incidents did just look like a bit of F125 wheel locking. Go on as you go.
Yeah, I can't say I think there was too much to say other than very much did just look like your typical game incident. Carry on as normal. But these top 3, they're still top 5 even really. Still just in that same section of the track. Obviously, DRS trains will be big round here. But this must be incredibly frustrating if you're a Josh or a Ryan, just sat hoping that you can take the lead, knowing the leader is right there, but nothing happening.
Well, I mean, if you look down to 8th position, they are all in that DRS train together, from Torpedo Steve all the way down to Matt Connor. It's then Traps at the head of the train, 3.3 seconds behind Matt Connor, and that gap is really starting to tumble. So I do wonder if Traps has maybe got some damage. He hasn't, so evidently maybe just lacking a bit of pace is Traps, and Jamaican Jam is looking to make his way through. Sustained damage on the first lap did Jamaican Jam after massive contact before turn 1 even came, but carrying on with the damage and now up into 9th position. Matt Connor managed to get his way past DGH, and MCL and Josh very, very close to each other on the exit of turn 4. MCL looking to try and make a move on the Aston Martin. Nothing doing for him though. Josh steers the ship clear and remains in 3rd, but that has given a little bit of a gap to the likes of Steve and Ryan Brooks, who just set on out in front and continue their own battle. Very split tyre strategies between the entire grid here. We've got, I would say, the majority on mediums, but then we've got a couple on soft tyres, we've got a couple on the hard tyres. So the strategy game definitely going to play dividends, as we're already on lap 5 of 71.
So here he goes then, Ryan Brooks. You can see that red light on the back of Steve flashing round the outside and takes the lead.
Very good calculated move there from Ryan Brooks. And the question now will be, can he try and gain away from Steve? These top 2 have managed to pull a little bit of a gap on the likes of Josh, MCL, Mikey Boy and Daryl, as Matt Connor and DGH do their own battle in 7th and 8th. But that gap just increasing itself a little bit between Steve and Josh, and that is going to pay dividends, because that will be mega helpful for the likes of Steve, who is in his debut race. You would much rather just battle Ryan than battle 6, 7, 8 cars behind you.
Absolutely. So is it going to be round 2 then? 5.5 tenths in it. DRS will be activated. Here we go then. Alpine versus Haas. The Haas goes to the outside, takes the lead. It won't be over yet. And now down towards turn 4, then a slight snap from Ryan. Is he close enough? I don't think so.
It doesn't look like it, and I must say, the big thing that paid dividends there was Torpedo Steve had about double Ryan's ERS battery store, which really helped him elevate his car past the Haas driver. MCL has now finally made his way past Josh and up into third, and will look to try and gain on the top 2 once more and bring that gap down. But Mikey is now really starting to come at Josh as we go towards the penultimate corner. Before the corner even comes up, Mikey manages to get himself through into fourth, and Josh losing a couple of positions on the same lap. He will now look to try and reset as KT Spidey already nearly being lapped here. We're only on lap 7 of 71, but KT Spidey on debut most certainly struggling, as here comes Ryan Brooks again, and it looks like this is the way it's going to be for the next few laps, just taking positions off of each other relatively easily. Not too much battling going on. These guys recognise at the front it's only lap 7. There's still a hell of a long way to go in this Grand Prix, and there's no point going hell for leather trying to take each other out and make absolutely incredible moves to get past. Just do what you need to do. Continue growing that gap to MCL in third, and then when it gets to the later stages of the race, then you can properly do battle.
Definitely. We are just about 10% race distance in. Still plenty of time to go. Still lots of time for Steve. Even though it's frustrating to have lost the lead already, every chance to get it back soon. And now might be one of those chances.
The thing is, Ryan Brooks got DRS from the lapped car of KT Spidey, so that would have helped Ryan down the main straight. He won't get it here, and again Steve with much more battery very easily goes to the outside. Ryan knows he won't be able to fight it, and Steve moves back into the lead. MCL still in third, Mikey is still in fourth. Josh just having a little sniff up the inside, but nothing major. Knows that it's not worth sending a crazy dive bomb at the minute. Jamaican Jam manages to get through on Hash for 9th place. Harry in 12th, and is really looking to the gearbox of the Haas of Jack on the harder compound tyres as well. Jack just a little bit quicker in a straight line. Harry sending it down the inside, almost Daniel Ricciardo-esque, and I must admit that a little bit forces the Haas off the track, and Jack re-enters the track, now down in 15th place. And that was quite the aggressive move from Harry, definitely showing that he is one of the more aggressors in NRRL, definitely not afraid to get his elbows out. But now, look who's right behind him, Lewis.
Definitely. It could get very, very interesting from here on out. As Ryan No, he doesn't retake the lead. My thing was pitching there. Here we go then. Still just somewhat close, but can't really close up to him. And this is a very risky game. It might be a smarter idea to drop out the DRS for a little bit, let those tyres cool down, and then at a later stage try and get back in front. But they're racing drivers, so I doubt that will happen.
Mikey has managed to get through on MCL and up into third on the hard compound tyres. That's very, very telling that the hards really are keeping up with the mediums and even going past them. We see Daryl in 6th as well, who will be putting pressure on Josh. And as soon as you get past Josh, it's MCL that's there as well. KT Spidey picks up another 3-second time penalty. Josh just pulls out the slipstream of MCL for the time being, but it looks like the real one looking to gain is going to be Darrell as he sweeps up to the back of the Aston Martin, pulls to the outside. Josh is going to look to fight this, but unfortunately under braking, nothing he could really do. Darrell up to 5th, Josh down to 6th, and Darrell on the hard compound tyres, will now look to try and gain on MCL, who is going to look to the inside of Mikey, though. The best defense is attack in MCL's case, makes the move, parks it on the apex, so Mikey has no option but to relent, and MCL moves back up into 3rd. But what this is doing is really giving that gap to Steve and Ryan. It's now over 3 seconds between our 2 leaders and MCL in 3rd. And that is absolutely ideal for Ryan and for Steve, who can just do their own battle, sod off into the distance, do their own thing, and bring these laps down. 60 laps to go of this Grand Prix, and Josh, quite early I must say, dives into the pits.
Definitely an interesting call, but one that could pay dividends. We'll see where he emerges. It is hard tyres for the Aston Martin. Won't take him to the end of the race, but will take him quite far into it. He won't come out in front of the Red Bull, just behind it. But at this current point, position isn't something that he'll be too bothered by, of course, being the first one of the bigger hitters into the pits. And now, for the next few laps, as he looks to get past the Red Bull here, he does. And now it is just those next few laps, try and claw back some time and see what happens at the rest of the field.
Mikey managed to get his way back through on MCL. Darrell was involved in that fight. We almost went 3 abreast into turn 4, but all of them managing to make it through cleanly. A little bit of contact as Darrell went a little bit deep on the brakes, but nothing major. Ryan's made his way back into the lead, but Steve, you can imagine, will inevitably do exactly what he's done for about the past 8 laps now. Sweeps to the outside, easy as you like, move done. MCL is looking to the inside, and Darrell, ever the opportunist, is going to look to try and send it down the inside as well. Mikey goes a little bit wide onto the sausage curb, gets the better traction though, and the DRS, and MCL is really going to lose out here as Darrell now pulls wheel to wheel with the Sauber. Late on the brakes goes Darrell, locking up almost into the side of the McLaren of Mikey. Manages to make the move on MCL though, and MCL, looking to make 1 move gained, now loses 2.
And that is the risk of going for overtakes like that. They can pay off beautifully, but that has backfired. As we have a yellow flag being waved. That's a Mercedes of Spidey. Keeps the car running. But not the most impressive evening, shall we say.
Most certainly not. Here comes Ryan Brooks once again on Torpedo Steve. As you can imagine, lap in, lap out, that's what's going on. And Darrell flies past Mikey, almost goes into the back of him in his pursuit. So much overspeed that he had an MCL with a big mistake there. Into turn 3, very, very late on the brakes. Has to glide himself off the track as to not go into the rear wing of Mikey. And that has crucially lost him a massive amount of time. Has actually dropped him out of the DRS. And how costly could that be for the Sauber?
Things starting to unravel for him just that little bit. As we always say, it's a long race. Get your head back in the game, a few laps just to calm down. And things might start to get better. But not going the way he would have anticipated after what was a fairly decent start.
He's managed to get himself back in the DRS very, very quickly, but has drained nearly all his battery in the pursuit of doing it. Mikey has got a hell of a lot of battery. He's right behind Darrell and surely will be primed to make a move here on the run up the hill towards turn 3. Is there going to be a gap opening up to the inside? Mikey sniffs it. He sends it late on the brakes, but Darrell, ever the late breaker, manages to hold the position. But now we go for round 2. Towards turn 4 we go. Mikey, with the DRS and the ERS, is gaining towards the rear wing of the V-Carb. Nothing doing though, and we've got our first retirement from the session as KT Spidey is disqualified for parking in a dangerous location. I believe that may have been the first time I've ever seen that before in a league race.
I think the same here, but I have to say that that is the right decision after what we've seen so far.
Most certainly that. I couldn't agree with you more. Lap 14 of 71 of this Austrian Grand Prix, or lap 15 should I say, of 71 of this Austrian Grand Prix. And Mikey boy looking to gain on Darrell once more. Further down the grid, we've got Jamaican Jam and Hash doing battle. This is the battle for 7th place. Harry just on the back of DGH on the soft compound tyres. You can imagine those soft compound tyres probably not enjoying life as much as they would have done in qualifying.
I think I'd be inclined to agree with you. They're clearly not working in that same realm as they were just that little while ago. As we see Harry and DGH going for it here. And the Williams gets through the V-car, but is it over yet? Not quite. Down towards turn 4. And he manages to keep hold of the position. Well, not for much, not for longer though.
DGH, great battling in defence of 9th place. Harry looking to get through on the medium compound tyres. They are still wheel to wheel through the middle sector. Brilliant battle here, and now look who's getting involved. It's Harry's old rival, Dan Lovett. And right on the back of that is Josh on the new hard compound tyres. This is really beginning to get scrappy as DGH now dives into the pits. But now Dan Lovett will have a great chance at going at Harry, and this most certainly will be a move he will relish in the making as he goes down the inside at turn 1. Josh looks to be the opportunist and make his way through too. Harry defends hard but will not have the DRS, so he's going to have to drain his battery. Josh is still on the inside, finally manages to pull ahead of the V-Carb, who now gets boxed in by the Ferrari. We're nearly 3 abreast into turn 3 as there's more contact between Harry and Josh as they now drag race. They're now gaining on Dan Lovett, who doesn't have the DRS. Harry now looks to gain back the position on Dan and manages to do so. Incredible battling between all 4 of these guys, and somehow they're still wheel to wheel on the exit. Dan Lovett finally has to give up the position to Harry and exhaust his attack for one more lap. But beautiful battling from Harry. Stark defence of that 9th place. But these two starting to really become rivals now, Dan Lovett and Harry. Almost seems that they're wheel to wheel and making contact in every single race they compete in. But Dan Lovett with a mistake out the final corner now looks to gain on Dan Lovett. He manages to get past Harry as well. Dan to the inside of Harry at turn 1, forces him off the track, says thank you very much. That's payback for earlier. Through goes I have no grip as well. And Harry down a few positions in one corner, but now looking to make it back as he absolutely sends it into turn 3. Slams Dan Lovett off the track, and the frustration really starts to boil over now as Dan Lovett almost brake tests Harry there in the middle of the track. I can imagine that was an illegal overtake, so Dan Lovett had to give the position back, but definitely did not look like the safest way to do so. And these two bitter rivals turn sour once more. Harry and Dan Lovett, they're almost like magnets to each other as Dan Lovett with a big mistake on the infield in the middle sector. That will drop him well out of the DRS of the V-Carb, and Harry really getting the elbows out on lap 17 and 18 of this Austrian Grand Prix.
What a battle there. As you say, we've seen these go toe-to-toe before, but that might just be, I don't know what to say, the warning sign that this could be getting a little bit more frequent and a little bit more touchy.
We've seen them battling almost every day that the both of them race. They seem to be so close to each other, and there's always some sort of little contact or whatnot, and someone gets a little bit annoyed, and there's a little bit of drama in the chat, and there's tickets opened, and the stewards get involved. And that, I must say, is the biggest flashpoint of their rivalry to date. The Austrian Grand Prix playing host to the grand stage of drama. It's like the West End. Drama absolutely unfolding. And it's Harry that comes out on top in both occasions. But you can most certainly imagine that both drivers will be heading to the stewards' room, because that was spicy. Ryan is looking to gain on the back of the Alpine of Torpedo Speed. Or Steve, sorry. I should call him Torpedo Speed. He's absolutely rapid. But Steve is just managing to hold off in first place, using that ERS to try and keep himself ahead. Is Ryan going to look for a dive down the inside? Doesn't look like there's a gap for it, as Matt Tudor slows down to let everyone by. Very gentlemanlike of him. The gap now 5 seconds between third and second, and that gap ever growing as Daryl is right on the back of F1 Mikey Boy. MCL just falling off of this battle a bit as the medium tyres start to wear off a tad. It's then Matt Connor who's in 6th with Hash in 7th, and the battles just start to calm down now. Our closest battle on track is between Traps and Paul Codd, and that is the battle for 13th.
And obviously, as you say, Dan into the pits. Hard tyres for him. Again, probably won't take him until the end, but will take him a good chunk into it. I did have a look. I wasn't quite able to see. I managed to catch the end of it, whether they were changing the wing or not. I don't believe so. But clearly, I'm not too. That did seem very reactionary to the battle with Harry.
Potentially looking for the undercut on his rival. Harry reacts to that pit stop and comes into the pits. While we were watching that, MCL came into the pits for the hard compound tyres. He's emerged in 9th. Daryl managed to get ahead of F1 Mikey Boy, and they are still doing battle. Now the question is, who will come out ahead? Dan Lovett or Harry? Harry has emerged onto the track well ahead of Dan Lovett as Dan picks up a 3-second time penalty. Harry's onto the mediums. Dan's onto the hards. And Harry comes out just behind Jamaican Jam in 15th place, and will look to gain as both of our leaders into the pit lane. And crucially, it's Ryan in first.
So now with all the pitters, Daryl comes in to take the lead. He has Mikey just behind him, already on a penalty. So here out come the projected top two, Torpedo Steve and Ryan Brooks, and this is not good for Steve. Josh in the middle of them. He is going to try and get a move here on Ryan Brooks, so this actually could bring him back into play. Josh not able to make it through. And this could be quite a painful few laps for Steve if he can't get past Josh here.
Now, I must say, that is one thing that is quite crucial in league racing. We see it all the time, is coming into the pit lane. How aggressive do you want to be? Ryan Brooks, maybe just with a little bit more experience in league racing, a little bit more aggressive into the pit lane. Steve taking it a little bit lighter to try and not get a penalty. And look at the gap that's opened up. They were within half a second of each other coming into the pit lane. But Ryan just taking that little bit more of an edge into the pit lane has not only gained himself a position, which is now going to be lost as Steve goes down the outside on the main straight, and Steve is right back with him. But if those cars weren't involved, the gap was around a second and a half, as Ryan is now going to look to try and put another Aston Martin in between them as he goes through on Hash. Steve trying to look to the inside, but nothing doing for him. Hash will get the DRS on Ryan Brooks, and this is going to harm Steve's race. The question is, can Hash try and hang with Ryan Brooks? Because this could be pivotal in the battle for the win. Currently, our leaders are Daryl and F1 Mikey Boy. Lap 22 of 71. They started on the hards and are yet to box yet, as MCL on the fresh hard compound tyres. Manages to get past I Have No Grip, who is yet to pit off of the mediums, and I believe the only driver out on track to have started on the mediums and not come in for a pit stop yet. Harry has managed to make his way past Jamaican Jam and is now looking to gain on the Haas of Jack, and that is the battle for 11th place. Further behind, Dan Lovett is just gaining, creeping up to the back of Paul Codd, but Dan Lovett definitely not having the race that he would have wished for as he took to the Styrian Mountains tonight. Ryan Brooks managed to dispatch Hash a lap ago. Torpedo Steve has managed to replicate that and is well within the DRS as Hash tries to sneak it back up the inside. Nothing doing for him, no. And no Aston Martin team orders going down from the Silverstone-based outfit. Is Josh maybe going to look for a move on his teammate? He is going to look for a move on his teammate. Down the inside, contact between the two Aston Martins as we've got a yellow flag at turn 1. I believe that's Paul Codd. It is Paul Codd who's had a moment down at turn 1. Seems like that front wing's just had a little bit of damage as well, as Harry and Jamaican Jam both get their way past Jack up into 11th and 12th respectively. Now 8.5 seconds to DGH ahead. Harry will look to head that field and try and pull them closer. But the question is now, for the leaders, starting on the hard compound tyres, when do you box? And a question posed in the TikTok chat, how can I get into this racing league? Give me 2 moments, Tyrone. I will DM you with an invite link. Do not worry, my friend. We do race on Tuesdays, Fridays, Saturdays, and Sundays. If you're looking to join, please do stick a message in the chat and we will get you involved. I might just have to paste the Discord link in the chat, although it will not let me because we have spam rules on, so most certainly not ideal. So Tyrone, I will request to follow you, and when you accept, I'll shoot you a little DM, send you the invite link, and you will be more than welcome to get in, my friend. Mikey still gaining on the back of Daryl. This is the battle for the current lead, but you would imagine our net race leaders, Ryan Brooks and Torpedo Steve, will have something to say about that once they come into the pits. We had another brief yellow flag. I believe that was for a Haas car as Josh picks up a 3-second time penalty in his battle, trying to gain on the race, well, the net race leaders for now. Mikey just looking to try and make a move on Daryl, but nothing doing for him at the moment. We'll have DRS back down to turn 4. Daryl swoops to the inside to stop the slipstream, and Daryl retains the lead. My account is She Loves JP, Tyrone. I have requested to follow you, so if you accept my request, I'll be able to send you an invite link to the league and we'll get you in as soon as possible.
So Ryan still chasing down Steve at the minute. Neither of the two in the lead, of course. Mikey and Daryl still yet to pit. They are going for it here. Mikey, of course, we do say quite often, is there a driver you want to see in your mirrors less? And we could be about to see the reason why. DRS for the McLaren up towards the hill. Little bit too far back to make a move. We do have a yellow flag.
That was for Torpedo Steve. I'm going to interrupt you, Lewis. Through turn 1. Big moment for Steve. Big damage for Steve. There is big damage to that front wing. I believe there was contact with Ryan Brooks, and that surely is going to force Steve into the pit lane. It's not just an end plate that's gone from the front wing of that Alpine. That is big, big damage for the Alpine. And Ryan Brooks now 2.1 seconds clear. Steve losing time every single millisecond that he continues on with this damage. And there you can see him running very wide, and into the gravel goes the Alpine. And the debutant looking for a maiden Grand Prix win on debut. His race now comes crashing down as MCL goes through on the Alpine. And this is absolute heartbreak for Steve, who is going to be diving into the pit lane for a new front wing. And we're yet to reach half race distance, but that is cruel to see. And my condolences go out to Steve as he comes in now for a new front wing, and Ryan Brooks surely on course to take yet another Grand Prix victory.
You have to say, if there is anyone that is more relieved to have heard of that, it would have been Ryan. But if you are in the position of Steve, you've had a great debut so far. There's still plenty of time to get some good points, but that must be absolutely heartbreaking.
Dan Lovett into the pits to retire from the session. And the league owner's race not going as he would have wanted. Contact with this man, Harry, as we seem to say in nearly every single race that happens in NRRL. Harry and Dan Lovett, bitter rivals, turning even more sour with every race that they race against each other. Archie, I can see you in the TikTok chat, my friend. I'm going to request to follow you. My account is SheLovesJP. I will DM you an invite link, my friend, and we will get you in and sorted as quickly as possible. As we've got a yellow flag, and that's for a Ferrari, and I believe that's Dan Lovett's retired Ferrari, just coming to a halt now. It is. Mikey Boy came into the pits. He emerged in 5th place, just a mere 5 seconds, or well, 5.9 seconds off of MCL, who is about 3.4 seconds off of Josh. And Josh running a very good, quite quiet race here is Josh, but currently in the podium positions. Made that real big undercut, pitting very, very early, but definitely making up positions. Jamaican Jam manages to get through on Harry in the battle for 9th. Harry will have the DRS and the battery to move back through. And the V-Carb back into 9th. They've got the lapped car of Matt Tudor just ahead of them, who really has not had the ideal Austrian Grand Prix. Tyrone, I can confirm that not all the races are 100%. We have the Friday races and the Sunday races that are 100%. The Saturday races are Formula 2 action, and the Tuesday races our 50% Formula 1 action. Welcome to the stream, Aston. Hope you're doing well, my friend. This is lap 29 of 71 of the Austrian Grand Prix, and it is currently Daryl who leads, having yet pit in this race. It is then Ryan Brooks in 2nd, from Josh in 3rd, MCL in 4th, and Mikey in 5th.
So we say about Josh having a quiet race, but you could say those are the best types of races to have, just under the radar, but picking up those points as the laps chip away. Definitely in a good position. I think if I'm in his position, I'm somewhat confident, to be honest. It is, as I say, probably the best type of race you can have.
Most certainly that, and I must say I'd be quite confident if I was in the cockpit of Mikey Boy. Yes, 15.7 seconds off of the leader, but only 2 laps on those hard compound tyres compared to the likes of Daryl, who's yet to pit. You've got Josh, who's done 19 laps on his tyres. MCL, who's done 10 laps on his. Ryan, who's done 9 laps on his. Mikey's definitely in a good position. The Aston Martin drivers are currently in 3rd with Josh and in 12th with Hash Aston. So your team, on one hand, doing very well, on one hand, struggling just a little bit, but Hash is looking to make moves. Torpedo Steve is the guy ahead of him and just sets the fastest lap of the race. And Steve, our long-time race leader, after that contact with Ryan Brooks, maybe falling down once more as Hash sniffs up the inside of turn 3, nothing doing for him. Looks to try and get a good exit out of turn 3, and now towards turn 4 we go with the DRS following the Aston Martin. Is there a move on the inside of the Alpine? He backs out of it early, trying to force Steve into a mistake. Steve, never going to fall for that dummy, remains in 11th.
Just at this point, if you are Steve, what do you do at this point? Because even though, as we say, not even halfway through, your chance at victory is pretty much almost gone, and you know you have the pace for it, but here you are in 11th place.
Exactly that. He knows that he's got the pace. He knows that he's got all the tools that he needs to win this race. We've seen him lead for so long, but now really in no man's land in 10th position. He's got a 5.6 second gap ahead of him to the battle of Harry and Jamaican Jam that is still ensuing between the Mercedes and the V-Carb. And this battle does not look like it's going to end anytime soon.
he's out.
We've got a yellow flag and Torpedo Steve is out of the session. That almost looks like an intentional crash there as he's gone straight on at turn 3. And we have our first safety car deployed. And Daryl is really going to benefit from that. 31 lap old hard compound tyres now comes into the pit lane as Ryan Brooks also comes into the pit lane. MCL also into the pits. It's Mikey Boy that stays out and you would imagine is going to take the lead of this one, although Daryl and Ryan Brooks are coming out into the pit lane. I believe Daryl changed his front wing, hence why he's lost the position to Ryan Brooks. But as they emerge from the pit lane, it is Mikey Boy just about that manages to emerge in the lead. It's then Ryan Brooks in second on the new hard compound tyres. Daryl is in third on the mediums. Josh in fourth on the mediums. MCL goes on to the hard compound tyres. Jamaican Jam stays out. Matt Connor's in. DGH is in as well as Harry. And the race now livens up once more.
So what happens now? If you're in Ryan's perspective, you've been probably the one to beat all day long so far that is still in the race. Mikey is no slouch, but you do have the strategy advantage. So where do you go from here?
It's most certainly difficult, but I think this is definitely a gift to all the drivers. I personally race on the Friday nights, and we had a race around Bahrain on Friday. No safety car, no virtual safety car, and it really puts it into your head how important the safety car periods are, because it gives you just that little bit of downtime to try and think about the strategy and think about what you've got to do to get yourself back in this race. And I can tell you, 71 laps around the Austrian Grand Prix without a safety car would definitely be hell for these drivers mentally. But they will most certainly be happy with a safety car, especially if you're the likes of Daryl, who, let's just look at the position gain. He's only gained one position from qualifying, but overcutting absolutely massively. Our big gainers are F1 Mikey Boy, who's up 4 positions. Hash and I Have No Grip are also up 4 positions. So we've not really got any real big gainers in this race. As we look to the penalty situation, we've got Paul Codd on 21 seconds of penalties, but a lot of 3 seconds and 6 second penalties have been dished out. Currently, Matt Connor, Jamaican Jam, Daryl and Ryan Brooks, the only drivers to have not picked up a penalty thus far. As we can see with the pit stops, it's Mikey and Daryl who have made 1 stops in the top 5. Everyone else has stopped twice. And this race, surely the likes of Ryan Brooks and MCL can't take those tyres to the end.
I would be very surprised if they were able to find a way, because even if they tried it, they would be dead by lap 60, I would expect. So I don't see a world in which that would be beneficial.
Most certainly that. Mikey will continue on to lead, but like you mentioned, Lewis, Ryan, with the tyre strategy difference, a tyre delta, as we call it, 5 laps, is that difference between Mikey and Ryan's tyres. And while I can imagine that probably isn't too much, it definitely will be playing on Ryan and Mikey's mind alike, as the further we get into this stint, the more that sort of tyre delta will show itself. I think if you're in the cockpit of Daryl or Josh, you're definitely going to want to make a move early. On the softer medium compound tyres, you will most certainly want to get on with this, try and shoot yourself up into the lead and try and run away with this one early.
Definitely. A few people saying that the Sauber is lagging a lot. Can't say I'd know which one that would be. I guess they're talking about MCL. Nothing really looking like he is on my end. Not too sure.
Definitely interesting, all up and down the grid, and as we can see now, we've got just mediums and hards currently on track. The softs definitely not the favoured tyre strategy, I must say. Safety car is in this lap, and the question now is, if you're Mikey, when do you go? He has definitely led many, many times under safety cars, and he's gone now just before the final corner, and off he goes into the distance and has really caught Ryan Brooks napping. The gap almost 9/10 as we cross the line. Darrell has got a very good restart, as has Josh, and Darrell very wide and off the track at turn 1, and that's going to give Josh the position, and the pendulum now swings to Josh on the medium compound tyres. MCL gaining on the back of the V-carb, but for Mikey Boy out in front, already pulling a second on Ryan Brooks. That is an absolute dream. DGH and Harry both battling away as DGH went off the track there. Harry still battling away, takes a 3-second time penalty for going off track. Josh manages to get his way past Ryan Brooks and up into second place on those medium compound tyres. And this is a big battle going on here between Harry, DGH and Mr. Traps. Harry shoves it down the inside. DGH just running a little bit wide. Traps also getting involved. There's contact there and Traps loses a bit of front wing. Harry manages to win that battle for now, but DGH is really starting to come back at him. Backs out of it for the time being as Harry swoops in to the penultimate corner. Josh sets the fastest lap of the race and is really starting to gain on the back of Mikey Boy, using absolutely all of the battery that he can. And Josh is gaining. Is he going to look to the inside? He is going to look to the inside. And Josh, for the first time in this Austrian Grand Prix, now leads. It is Aston Martin on top from F1 Mikey Boy and McLaren, who will look to try and fight back as towards turn 4 we go. Is there a gap down the inside for the McLaren? There is definitely a gap. He looks to the inside. Josh, with the better traction on the outside, though, takes the lead.
Very, very good move there. We've said before how he was at the very top when we first started here. Hasn't maybe got back to those heights, but in recent weeks he's getting closer. Could tonight be the night?
Those medium tyres, I wouldn't have said would be the favoured strategy to be on, but Josh is making them work, and Mikey trying to work and pick up the hustle to gain onto the back of Josh, nearly dropping out the DRS, and has picked up another 3-second penalty in his troubles, and that will harm him in the fight with Josh. Darrell is looking to gain on Ryan as Paul Codd comes into the pits to retire from the session, and is our 4th retiree of the night. And this race really opens up now as Josh is really starting to pull a bit of a gap on Mikey. Ryan doesn't really have an answer for it. Darrell doesn't have an answer for it. MCL doesn't have an answer for it. Jamaican Jam falling off the top 5 battle. He's got Matt Connor, Hash, and I Have No Grip right behind him. Harry still trying to defend from DGH and Mr. Traps. And you just don't know where to keep your eyes in a battle like this.
No, it's very, very difficult to know exactly where to be looking. But it's a good problem to have, isn't it?
Most certainly that. Harry picks up another 3-second penalty in his pursuit of DRS on I Have No Grip. Jack picks up a 3-second penalty as he tries to get past Mr. Traps. About 5 seconds to gap between himself and the McLaren. Matt Connor manages to get through on Jamaican Jam. Hash looking to go round the outside of turn 3 as well. I Have No Grip involved in that battle. Harry looking to gain towards the back of that battle as well. who is best primed to make an overtake. It looks like Hash on the back of the Mercedes. Nothing doing down the inside though. Harry well within the DRS now as well. Matt Connor looking to escape from that battle. And this is most certainly turning into a race of fortune if you are the likes of Josh and Mikey out in front. Hash on the medium compound tyres looking to gain his way through as well. Mikey looking to make his way up to the back of the rear wing of the Aston Martin, but is just losing crucial time where he needs to be able to try and make a move. Josh really using all of that battery all the way down to 10%. Mikey using all of his battery in pursuit, and Ryan Brooks just holding on to a little bit more of his battery for the time being, happy to sit behind for the time being, as is Daryl. MCL nearly 70% battery in his Sauber, more than happy to hang on to all of the battery that he can in 5th. And like I say, you just don't know where to keep your eyes. There's battles pursuing all up and down the grid as I Have No Grip manages to get back past Harry. Harry on the switchback though manages to get back through and up into 9th place. They've got DGH right on the back of them and Hash just ahead. Jamaican Jam through on them. I Have No Grip losing even more position as he goes off the track, and DGH moves through into 10th.
Good move from DGH. They're his next target. Now getting onto the back of this train. A battle for 7th. 4 different teams here. And Harry right on the back of the Aston Martin. Can't find a gap through. Is he going to go for it? And you just had the feeling that that could go wrong. Although I believe I was on board with Harry. Was he tagged beforehand? I feel like he was.
I don't believe Harry was tagged beforehand, but that did look like a bit of a domino effect because Hash had his own little incident. Harry then almost having to react to Hash having his incident, then having an incident himself and going into the back of Hash. I don't believe there is any damage for any of those drivers. It most certainly doesn't look like Harry or Hash have any damage, but DGH has managed to sneak his way through. Jamaican Jam has just pulled a little bit of a gap on them. Ryan Brooks just a little bit closer to the back of Mikey Boy on this lap, and Mikey Boy is gaining towards the back of the Aston Martin of Josh and is definitely reeling him in closer as Josh makes a mistake at turn 3, and Mikey now with the DRS surely in prime position to make a move. He's got the inside line. Is the McLaren going to be late enough on the brakes? Josh swoops around the outside later on the brakes. Mikey using his overtake button though, as is Josh, as preemptively Mikey now into the lead as there is contact and Josh is round. And you just got the feeling that that was going to happen as they went wheel to wheel into the middle sector. And Josh finds himself going round, now down into 5th place. And we'll have to look to recoup. 2.1 seconds is the gap to MCL. We've got another yellow flag, and that's Matt Tudor, who's had an off in the middle sector as well. But for Josh, that is absolutely heartbreaking stuff. And Ryan Brooks now right on the back of Mikey Boy with plenty more battery. And without Mikey having the DRS, here comes Ryan on the back of Mikey and moves himself back up into the lead of the Austrian Grand Prix. Lap 42 of 71 of this Grand Prix. And Mikey Boy falls to 2nd as Ryan re-inherits the lead.
Very, very strong move from Ryan there. You can tell he knows he has the pace to win this. Can he do just that? You wouldn't put it past him. Certainly in the best of positions at the minute. But it is not over for another 28.5 laps. And if there is anyone that can stop him, you'd put Mikey right at the top of the list.
Most certainly that. Although that gap is really beginning to grow between Ryan and Mikey, and maybe that 5-lap tyre difference is starting to pay dividends between Ryan and Mikey. Mikey with the DRS though will inevitably pull that gap back as we see DGH manage to get his way through on Jamaican Jam. Jamaican Jam on 24-lap old hard compound tyres. Harry just looking to try and get his way through on the Mercedes as well. These two have battled many a time in the past. As there we see round the outside looks to go Harry, almost 3 abreast as Harry has to take off the track, gets another 3-second penalty. Hash in the background looking to make a move. Jamaican Jam now looking to get back past on DGH and does so. Harry looking to try and swing it round the outside. Doesn't look like there's a gap there for him. Jamaican Jam up to 7th, DGH into 8th, Harry to 9th, as I Have No Grip and Hash now do battle in the hunt for the last points paying position. And Hash wins out that war for now, but I Have No Grip with much more grip. Now looking to the inside of the penultimate corner, nothing doing down there, a very unorthodox place to make a move. And as we see now, down the main straight, onto lap 44 we go. Harry makes the move on DGH. A little bit of contact between them as they go through turn 1. DGH ran a little bit wide. Are they able to try and make gains on the Mercedes of Jamaican Jam? As towards turn 3 we go. DGH gets a little bit boxed in. There's even more contact between all of them. DGH manages to get through as Daryl takes the lead of the race. We've just missed this battle. I saw him get past F1 Mikey Boy, but Daryl making the medium tyres work as they should, and the V-Carb up to the lead.
Now that's a move that puts him into contention. Ryan now, that must be out of left field for him, realising that maybe this isn't a 2-horse race, it's a 3-horse race. Darryl, again, somebody we know has the pace, maybe hasn't had the platform to show that yet. But as we said with Josh before that went a little bit sideways, could this be the night where Darryl shows just how quick he is?
Exactly that. Daryl, we know, is a proven race winner in NRRL, and is definitely no slouch, but hasn't won in a while. Most certainly looking to bring himself back. And what a way this would be to return to the front by taking a win in the most unlikely of circumstances. As Daryl, he is the man that leads. It is Ryan Brooks in second, who has had his own slump of form in recent weeks. Harry and DGH still doing battle into the middle sector, and surely they can't go wheel to wheel through here. They managed to make it work. DGH a lot later on the brakes though, sweeping around the outside on the racing line. But this battle seemingly with no end between DGH, Harry, Hash, Jamaican Jam and I Have No Grip, as we see Jamaican Jam now dive finally into the pit lane, and DGH looks to gain on Harry once more. Just stamps on the brakes though, as he knows he will get the DRS next time round down this straight, and that will be the biggest handful of help that he can get. As DGH now looks to try and gain on Harry, to the outside of turn 3 he goes. Harry, late on the brakes though, runs all the way off the track, and that's caused the domino effect as there's big contact there between nearly all 4 of these drivers. I Have No Grip is the big one that loses out, and Harry almost acting like a human roadblock here as Hash now gets through into 8th, DGH up into 9th. I Have No Grip remains in 10th but has lost a lot of time in that fight, and Harry, I mean, as much as he is a friend of mine and I would love to put some good thoughts on his name, this is definitely not the best race I've seen him orchestrate.
Hasn't had the cleanest of races in terms of just that ability to show the pace he has. Drivers do have off days. quite often, and this seemingly is just one of those days for him. So I wouldn't read too much into it, but definitely a frustrating day.
Most certainly that, and I can most assuredly tell you this, that the most frustrated man by this Harry performance is Harry himself. He will be absolutely livid that this has happened tonight, and will most certainly look to improve from this. We know drivers, like you say, Lewis, always having little moments and sometimes races that don't go their way, whether that is their fault or not their fault, completely different matter. But Harry definitely not having the best of races thus far, and will most certainly need to and look to improve in future weeks. He's got Hash and DGH right behind him, who are wheel to wheel going into the penultimate corner. Definitely not a normal overtaking opportunity, but DGH making it work and getting through on the inside. We're on lap 48 of 71, and this battle still commencing between all four of these guys as Hash runs it a little bit deep through turn one and loses the position to DGH, who will now look to try and gain on Harry, but they have got a little bit of a gap now, and Harry really gaining the ERS back, nearly at a full battery here, as we see Hash once more run a little bit wide, and DGH takes back the position. I Have No Grip looking to gain on the Aston Martin, and maybe even the Williams as well, as down the inside we go into turn 4, on board with the Red Bull, just trying to muscle his way past the Aston Martin, but Hash still keeping a foot in the door as there's contact between them. Hash running it very deep into turn 5, but managing to keep the position, and this is just allowing Harry to try and run away with it.
Does have just that little bit of a gap to DGH. Still will have DRS. Does run a little bit wide though, extends that gap by a couple of tenths. I'm sure DGH won't be the happiest with that. Still has that DRS, as we say. He is gaining, getting closer. Pulls to the inside and takes that 7th place. Here he comes again, though. Harry keeps the position. DGH ran a little bit wide. And Harry ends that sequence with the position. Although DGH is coming back at him.
My apologies there, I was just messaging Dan Lovett, the owner, who in his own words, I'm going to put it shortly, and I'm going to put a stamp on it, very frustrated is Dan, and understandably so after having his race a little bit ruined. Most certainly not through his own actions. DGH still looking to gain on Harry, but absolutely no battery at all for the Williams driver. DRS though will help him pull Harry in a little bit closer, but Harry with the overtake button more than he needs, but DGH is gaining on him. Harry using the overtake just to try and stay ahead. DGH looking towards the inside, throwing it down the inside is the Williams driver. They bang wheels as they go through turn 4, but DGH does momentarily manage to gain the position, and then Harry flying it up the inside. DGH forced wide onto the gravel, and again we see Harry in the wars with more cars, and again more contact for Harry, and DGH off onto the gravel, but doesn't lose too much time, loses the position to I Have No Grip, but most certainly still in this fight.
Can't say that that is what you want to see on a racetrack, and Harry does give the position up. Respectable thing to do. And I would say, to be honest, that should clear him of any potential penalty.
Most certainly that. He recognises the wrong in his actions and lets DGH through, as well as I have no grip. And I must say, you know, as much as I'm not trying to advocate for Harry, at least he's, you know, seeing what's happening in front of him, and he is taking his own action to improve. And it's like I said a couple of laps ago, the man that will be most frustrated by this performance will be Harry himself. Darrell still right on the back of Ryan Brooks in the battle for the lead. They've got about a second gap to Mikey in third. MCL is really beginning to gain on the McLaren driver as the Sauber looks to the inside of the McLaren. Into turn 3 we go. MCL manages to get the move done as Harry comes into the pits and actually retires from the session. And that is his race over. And as much as I don't want to say it, probably for the best.
I would have to agree with you there. It hasn't been the best of displays, shall we say. As in comes Mikey now into the pits. Stopped in P4. He will come out, I would expect, in probably about 8th.
You would
So
imagine
I would expect
so.
that's surely to the end of the race, isn't it?
Yeah, most certainly. I mean, I was looking at people like Darrell on the medium tyres and Josh on the mediums, thinking they're definitely going to have to come back into the pit lane again. Mikey on the hard compound tyres coming into the pits only reassures that for me, as Matt Connor manages to get through on Josh in the battle for 4th. And we have Darrell still holding true to the back of Ryan Brooks on the medium compound tyres, which I must say I am quite surprised about, as the medium tyres, 21 laps, you wouldn't imagine they're feeling the greatest. And Ryan Brooks, he is one of the only drivers that I can say in NRRL, if you give him a chance to check out at the front, he most certainly will. So the fact that Darrell is still sticking with him, definitely props to Darrell for still being in that fight. These two drivers, only 2 of 4 to have not gotten a penalty in this race thus far. And Darrell, most certainly, making those mediums work. I can't ever imagine that those mediums are going to the end of the race, nor really can I imagine that Ryan's hards will go to the end of the race. I believe both of them have used 2 tyre compounds, so it'll be interesting to see what they both go on to for the final stint, because that really could be the decider in who wins this Grand Prix, is what tyres they go on to. Is Ryan maybe in the position on the hard compound tyres to extend a little bit, maybe even go on to the softs at the end of the race? Whereas Darrell, is he going to have to come in a little bit earlier, look for that undercut, and then maybe go on to another set of the mediums, maybe giving Ryan the advantage?
He absolutely could do. And this is where the drivers earn those points. Final 16 laps. And 1 split-second decision could be the difference between victory or defeat.
Exactly that. I couldn't agree more, as Hash picks up a 3-second penalty, and time penalties are going to pay absolutely dividends in the course of this race. We'll look at the penalties now. It's MCL, I have no grip, on 3 seconds. We've then got F1 Mikey Boy, DGH and Jack on 6 seconds of penalties. It's then 9 seconds for Mr. Traps, Matsuda and Josh, and then 12 seconds for Hash. So in that midfield, those penalties really are going to decide the order as things stand. Still a fairly decent amount to go in this race. We're only on lap 55 of 71, but I must say, this race has gone pretty quickly, hasn't it, Lewis?
It very much has. 71 laps does seem like quite a long time, but around a track like this, it can go very, very quickly. And there has been action from start to finish.
Exactly that, and it doesn't look like it's going to relent anytime soon. Josh comes into the pit lane for what you would imagine will be his final stop. Going on to, are they the Redwood soft compound tyres going onto that Aston Martin? They are. And they are a set of used softs. You can see they're a little bit scrubbed as he comes down the pit lane. That is most certainly an interesting choice.
Can't say I would have made that choice myself, but that is why I'm in the commentary box and not on the track.
Most certainly that. Maybe Josh knows something that we don't, eh? Daryl
Yeah,
still looking to gain on the back of Ryan Brooks. Josh manages to get his way through on Jamaican Jam and will look to now try and gain back up that gap towards the likes of DGH, I Have No Grip, and F1 Mikey Boy. Mikey coming into the pits just a few laps ago, 6.8 seconds behind Matt Connor. And interestingly enough, that gap not really coming down at the rate of knots you would have thought it would have done. Maybe Mikey and the McLaren just not liking the medium tyres as much as they like the hards. And I must say, I'm just really looking out now for when this top 4 group is going to come into the pit lane, because surely these tyres cannot last till the end.
I don't believe that. I mean, they probably could. It's just the pace wouldn't be there, so it wouldn't be a smart move.
No, most certainly not. I mean, even if you can manage to make them stay out, there's definitely going to be some sort of puncture risk. I can assure you that. We saw a few punctures in Qatar this year, and definitely I would imagine Austria could be another puncture gate if these drivers decide to stay out. They are going to stay out for at least one more lap as we move on to lap 58 of 71 of this Grand Prix. And Daryl still keeping true on the back of Ryan Brooks. And just looking to try and stick with him for the time being.
Ryan still with the advantage at the minute, but 13 to go, less than a second. Anything can change here. But if you're Ryan, at the minute, things are starting to feel just that little bit closer.
Moving on now to lap 59 of 71 of this Austrian Grand Prix. And just as the laps tick down, I'm just starting to think, can they stay out? And then they do another lap, and it's like, maybe they could. They do another one, and it's like, oh, this is really going to be tight. As Mikey picks up another penalty in his pursuit of Matt Connor. Daryl just still keeping Ryan Brooks true in the battle for the lead of this one. It is Daryl who is chasing down Ryan Brooks. MCL just 3.7 seconds behind that battle for the lead, but that battle just does seem to be growing a little bit with the DRS advantage that Ryan and Daryl are getting from each other. Send Matt Connor, who's in 4th position for Ferrari. Mikey Boy in 5th, looking to gain on the back of the Ferrari driver. Send I Have No Grip in 6th, with Josh in 7th and DGH in 8th, with Jamaican Jam in 9th, and DGH weaving all over the place across the track in his defence of the Mercedes of Jamaican Jam. You would imagine the Mercedes will have whizzed past the Williams car, looking at the tyre difference, but nothing really doing for Jamaican Jam in this race. Had a very decent qualifying, and then that mass contact at lap 1 turn 1 that took part of his front wing off really just put a halt on his progress. 5 retirees in this Grand Prix so far, those being Harry Poulcod, Torpedo Steve, Dan Lovett, and KT Spidey. And I must say, Lewis, I really do feel this race would have been a little bit more interesting had Torpedo Steve still have been in this one. The debutant who took pole position, who looked so certain to be in the fight for the Grand Prix win. I really do hope we see him back soon.
Absolutely. It is very disappointing knowing just how quick he was in the early stages that he hasn't been able to threat those at the top, because we could have definitely had a much more interesting battle with 3 instead of 2.
Most certainly that, and it just puts those little bit more pressure points on the drivers as we move on to lap 61. 10 laps to go of this Austrian Grand Prix, and it is Ryan Brooks who leads and has been leading for a lot of this race ever since, especially Torpedo Steve unfortunately had to come in and retire after that contact down at turn 1. Ryan Brooks has been leading true and strong and doesn't really look like anything can stop him. Darrell with the DRS just sticking with him, but not really looking like a threat in the battle for the win. Not looking like there's enough grip on those mediums. As you can see, we go on board with Darrell. Those tyres really not looking good at all. MCL in third. We know most certainly one of the quicker drivers in NRRL, but unfortunately maybe this track just not one of his favourites. Struggling a little bit with the grip and with the strategy, although a podium will most certainly be good for him. A 3-second penalty he's got though. Same tyres for Matt Connor. You wouldn't imagine Matt Connor will really be gaining all too much on the Sauber, especially as Mikey has now really caught up with the back of him. And it's the same with Josh and I Have No Grip. The gap really coming down as Mikey down the main straight manages to get past Matt Connor and up into 4th place. Will have to pull a little bit of a gap due to his penalties if he wants to keep that 4th place. And we see now the Aston Martin of Josh just gaining on the back of I Have No Grip. He's going to look to the inside as we run up the hill and towards turn 3, and Josh does manage to make the move down the inside into turn 3. I Have No Grip will have the DRS to try and fight this one back. But I imagine on the 31 lap old hard compound tyres, there's not really much that he can do in the way of fighting. And that is Josh confirmed through up into 6th.
And even though it could have been much higher, Josh has done well to get himself into a strong position despite that incident earlier on today. To be 6th in this field with a not clean race is a very strong result.
Completely and utterly agreed. And I must say now, by this point, you would imagine Ryan, Darrell, MCL definitely not coming into the pits. Would you agree?
I would be stunned if it didn't end that way.
8 laps to go now in this Grand Prix. It just doesn't seem like there's any point, really. You're not going to lose that much time to the cars behind, especially when you know MCL is the guy behind and is on the exact same lap-old tyres. Just makes sense to stay out. Try and truck on with the tyre wear, maybe a little bit of the old Ferrari Lyco into a couple of the hard braking zones just to save those tyres a little bit more, especially if you are in Darrell's case, maybe just shaping up for one attack on the final lap. See, almost like George Russell on Max Verstappen in the Texan sprint yesterday. See if there's maybe just one opportunity to try and open it up down the inside. See if you can get a wheel in, maybe force Ryan into a mistake, and see if you can declare yourself a race winner once more. As we've got a yellow flag there, and I believe that's for Matt Tudor, who's been off the track. There is damage to that front wing, but the green flags fly once more, and we get going again. Very laggy is Matt Tudor. We've seen that in the chat be said a few times, but for me, that was the first time that I've properly seen that on board. Definitely not ideal for Matt Tudor, currently running in 13th place. And I must say, I am very surprised with this performance of Darrell. And if the race is to end in this sort of conclusion, I would have to say that Darrell would be my driver of the day. 32 laps, or well, it'll be more than that when they cross the checkered flag. But 32 laps, 33 laps now on a set of medium tyres, sticking with Ryan Brooks, who's one of the quickest drivers in the league, on a compound harder. Very, very impressive.
Done very, very well to stay there. I have to say, I thought there would be a drop-off at some point, but he's just completely been just phenomenal today. And regardless of whether he wins or not, a very, very strong result.
Completely agreed, and big championship points as we really enter the business end of this season. Big points as well for the likes of MCL and Mikey Boy. Matt Connor, big points in the Tier 2 championship as he looks to try and gain on his Ferrari teammate Dan Lovett, who was retired from this race. And overall, this one, we said before the lights went out that this could pay dividends for the championship battle and the championship scenario, and that is looking like exactly what it's going to be as we enter lap 66 of 71, and it is Ryan Brooks that continues to lead, from Darrell in second with MCL in third. It is Mikey Boy who's in fourth. Matt Connor is in fifth with Josh all over the back of him, and down the main straight we go, easy as you like for Josh, moves up into fifth.
Good move from him. A sign of one of the better drivers picking up points even when you've had an event that should stop you. Done very, very well to get himself still in a good position. Probably a little bit too far back for fourth, but certainly put everyone else on notice that form is starting to come his way.
Most certainly that. I will just look to the penalty situation. You can see obviously Josh with the 12-second penalty. So if he is to try and take that position away from Matt Connor, we'll definitely need to get a move on, as Traps picks up another 3-second penalty. And we said about it in qualifying before the race even happened that track limits would definitely be a factor in this race. And I mean, we've got the 4 drivers that don't have any penalties. We've only got 1 driver with only 3 seconds. That's MCL. But you can see just all the penalties. You've got 18 seconds, 15 seconds, 12 seconds. Definitely not easy to keep it within the white lines.
It certainly isn't. It's very, very easy to just make that slight mistake and get punished. And for a lot of the drivers, it feels like that is very much what has happened.
I have no grip right on the back of Matt Connor as Hash comes into the pit lane. I have no grip manages to make his way through on Matt Connor and up into 6th position. We'll lose that with the penalties anyway, but you can imagine on track that will still be a good feeling to get an on-track overtake even towards the very end of this race. Hash emerges from the pits in 10th place, and definitely a questionable choice to come into the pits so late and lose those positions. I can't really remember where Hash was. I believe it was around 8th position. So to come in and lose all that time to go onto the softs, you don't get a point for fastest lap in NRRL. Definitely a choice that I personally do not understand.
Yeah, I can't quite understand that myself either.
Meanwhile, Ryan Brooks has managed to pull a 1.6 second gap on Darrell. Those tyres just starting to die out for the V-Carb driver. Albeit second place will be a great result for him. A massive return to form. But for Ryan Brooks, a return to the top step of the podium. He's been away for a while as Ryan, but this will be the ideal way to get back into that groove.
as we say for every race, the leader has certainly had to fight for it. But when the time came to fight, he fought until he's won it. And he hasn't won it yet, but you would certainly expect that no one other than Ryan Brooks will be bringing this home.
Traps is out of the session and has hit the wall coming out of the final corner. And with only 2 laps to go, evidently just a bit of mental frustration and a bit of lack of concentration there for Traps. Only 2 laps to go in this Grand Prix. We're on lap 69 of 71, sorry. And that little lapse of concentration finds Traps out. That would have been a safety car most certainly, but it's too late for us to have one. You can't finish a race under the safety car on the Formula 1 games. There are Michael Massey. But Ryan Brooks on his way to yet another win in NRRL as he now comes round the final corner to begin the final lap. Oh, well, no, not the final lap. Sorry, the penultimate lap of this Austrian Grand Prix. Darrell 2.4 seconds behind, but I'm sure we'll be very happy with a podium place. MCL currently the man in third, and probably not the ideal result for MCL. We see nearly every time that he races, he's in the battle for the win. Not really in the fight for the win in this one. So definitely, I can imagine things to work on for MCL when they go back to Switzerland, the Swiss team of Sauber. Definitely happy with their star signing, but we'll want to debrief this race a little bit and see where they could have gone better. It's Mikey Boy who is in 4th position, although I believe is going to lose that position due to penalties. It's Josh in 5th with I Have No Grip in 6th, and the soft tyres of Josh most certainly starting to go off a little bit now. Nearly 40 laps on the hard compound tyres for I Have No Grip, and it will be 40 laps on the hard compound tyres for I Have No Grip. Incredible stint from the Red Bull driver. It's then Matt Connor who's in 7th as our leader makes his way on to the final lap of the race.
And like we say, he's very much earned it. There's been a couple of other races he probably could have won and had the pace to win, but maybe hasn't had the full package there. But tonight, nobody has really laid a glove to him for a consistent enough period.
Exactly that. Ryan Brooks, it just seems whenever he's in that right state of mind and whenever he is in the fight for a win, that ultra dominant force comes out. And when he's in this sort of mood, there is absolutely no stopping him. In the Haas car, the American-based team came to the Styrian Mountains today. And while Jack may be underperforming a little bit from what they expected, Ryan Brooks doing exactly what he set his sights after. He battled hard, he battled valiantly, and it will see him take the top step once more as Ryan Brooks returns to the top step of the podium and wins the Austrian Grand Prix. It is Darrell who finishes in 2nd place after a mighty 40-lap stint on the medium compound tyres. Brilliant stuff from the V-Carb man. It is MCL who finishes in 3rd place after a bit of a frustrating race for the Sauber. It is Matt Connor who will finish in 4th with a lovely result for Ferrari. It is then I Have No Grip who finishes in 5th, 41 laps on the hard compound tyres. Brilliant stuff from the Red Bull man. Mikey Boy comes home to finish in 6th with Jamaican Jam in 7th and Josh in 8th after that late charge on the softs. Hash is just on the final lap now and still battling away with DGH in their fight for 9th and 10th. DGH still fighting away and picks up a penalty through the final corner. Who will get the positions due to the penalties? It will be DGH that finishes in 9th with Hash in 10th. Jack finishes 11th with Matt Tudor in 12th. And well, that absolutely flew by and in good nature, as in just 10 minutes time, the real F1 starts. We were a little bit worried about this running over, but thank God it did not. So we will just sort of quickly move on from your classification, but there it is, ladies and gentlemen. It's Ryan Brooks who wins the Austrian Grand Prix from Daryl in second. It's MCL who finishes third, with Matt Connor in fourth. I Have No Grip finishes fifth, with Mikey Boy in sixth, and Jamaican Jam in seventh. Josh finishes eighth, with DGH in ninth, Hash 10th, and Jack in 11th, with Matt Tudor in 12th. Mr. Traps, Harry, Paul Codd, Torpedo Steve, Dan Lovett, and KT Spidey all failing to reach the flag. Well, thank you to all our followers and viewers on TikTok and Twitch. Daryl asking for driver of the day. I would have to give it to you, Daryl, simply for a 40 lap stint on the mediums. Absolutely crazy. Lewis, would you disagree?
Yeah, it would be between Daryl or Ryan Brooks, but Daryl to pull off that strategy is incredible.
Daryl saying the mediums were 90% worn. My word.
I can believe that.
How did you keep it on track, my friend? Good lord. Well, like I say, thank you very much to all the followers and viewers on Twitch and on TikTok. If you are new, drop a follow down below. Once again, thank you very much. I've been Jack, alongside me has been Lewis, and from me to you, wherever you are in the world, take care.